Rio Takeda, flying right elbow. Is it worth it? Should you try it? We're gonna find out today. Hope you got out and voted. I'm in my voting uniform today, and we're gonna take a look at somebody that has a motion that is full of compensations, but she was able to win 8 times on the Japanese LPGA Tour this year, and why you probably should not try her swing, but more importantly, understanding why it works and why she has to do stuff. And yes, it is based upon setup. So stay with me. Let me know in the comments down below. Watch the whole video because it makes a lot of sense when you do watch the whole video. Forgive all the lines, but that's just how we roll here at the Line Golf Academy. But other than that, let's get started. So Rio has won 8 times this season on the Japanese LPGA Tour. The most recent one is the Toto Japan Classic. Now her swing here generates 262 yard average, but it is a very unique motion. So we're just going to watch it a couple of times and we'll see that her hands definitely start much higher, but there is a need and a reason for this. And it's all, again, yes, based on the setup. So we're going to break down her swing today, look at her setup, how this affects her hand path, her plane, why she has to stay back and tilt, and more. So this swing is very unique because of its setup, and when you have this setup, you are going to create some compensations. Now for most of us, our compensations don't fall like tour pros, and what we're looking at is that forward shaft lean in relation to her tilting, which is measured from the shoulder tilt and that center of the chest straight down through. Now if this was a textbook setup, we would see that ball position more towards where that green line is. However, that ball position now is slightly in her center of her body, so this will cause some things. On the right side of the screen, we're going to look at the lower plane line and the upper plane line. More importantly though, we're going to look at that spine angle and then also the back brace line to see how she is able to retain her posture while she makes these motions. But the key is we're going to look at that left side of the screen. So when we see this setup in amateurs, we typically see that the center of the chest will usually move in between these two lines to try and match up their circles. And the circles, for those that don't usually watch us, we're looking at the circle on the red line and also the circle on the green line. Right now they bottom out at the different points, so amateurs feel that and they try and get over to the left side. Now the problem when amateurs get over to this left side, what typically happens is we start coming over the top, a path that's left. We start hitting down on the golf ball with the driver, which increases our backspin, which is not something that you want to do because most amateurs don't have the ability to hold that angle with the wrists and fall back like most tour pros do with this setup. And this is what separates us from the tour pros. So what I'm talking about is measuring where that golf ball is in relation to the shoulder tilt. So we're going to look at for 90 degrees, and that's pretty close for 90 degrees. So we can see that that golf ball is set up well outside her right shoulder in relation to the tilt. Now this is key because what happens with her is as she strikes that golf ball, you can see that she falls back towards this tilting area to make this work. But let's break this down even further to see why and how this is working. So what we're going to do is take a look at this degree between the shaft and also the upper body. So it's about 11 degrees. So let's now draw that same 11 degrees and this position. So it is off her right shoulder. Now this is key because what we will see is let's draw now a couple of circles. We're going to draw where her head is currently, and then we're going to draw where her head will need to be, and we're going to do this in our favorite Barney purple. So that is the goal for her. Now another line, and no we're going to pack this with lines, but I just want this to make more sense for you, is where that ball position is in relation to her. It cuts right through her head. However, if you look at the relation between that ball position and her feet, it is favoring the right foot. So there is going to be some issues that she's going to have to compensate for. And you take a look at this first move on the way back, we do see her head is going to shift over almost to that purple circle. And we see on the right side of the screen, look at the arms, how they just pull straight up and out. So this is a very high arm position. And we see that it gets well above that secondary plane line, and we start to form our triangle. So now our triangle is more straight down. Now she will not take it straight down because she has to fall back and hold her angles. Now if she came straight down, what would happen is she would meet that lower plane much quicker and she will probably bottom out and strike earth right in this region because her path of her hands would be more out to the right. And when your path is out to the right and you're coming in fairly shallow, you will start to make some contact issues, specifically when you are falling back. So look at the left side of the screen first and look at the head. Notice how the head will fall right into where that purple line is because she is making up for that forward shaft lean and the golf ball position. So as she strikes the ball, you can see how much away her head has fallen to make up for that inadequate setup. Now this will do a couple things for her. It definitely gets her hand path going left because she is steep on the right side. So we know that she does the compensation moves of a tour pro. Now she won't be able to do this unless she's able to hang on to this angle for very long. Most of us cannot do this. Most of us cannot rotate, tilt, and hold on to that angle. Now the reason she has to come above the plane, and we see on the right side of the screen, look at how steep that motion is there. If you look at today's standards of teaching, they'll say, oh my God, that is very steep. We've got to get that club much lower. But she cannot get much lower because of the amount of turn that she is establishing and tilting back. Again, she's going to bottom out at earth before she strikes the ball because if she gets her arms to meet that lower plane line soon enough. But let's clear some of these lines up so we're not getting too confused. And the biggest one I want you to look at is the way the triangle action occurs. Now, the one on the right side of the screen, we're going to draw this in red. Typically in amateurs, we see an immediate move to the right. Tour pros, they get it to go on the left side of that because they're dropping their hands closer to that plane. But for her, remember, she's angled back in this area. Now, because she has moved her weighting over to the right side and she's getting ready to drop down and tilt and actually move further back, her first move is a lot of rotation. So we still see the hands moving more like an amateur, which is the right side of this triangle. But she has to do that because of this excessive tilt on the left side of the screen backwards. Now, this allows her hand path to move slightly left as we see the escape pattern of her club is going in between those two now. But the key is look at how much she has retained her angles on the right side of the screen. In fact, she has moved over and she has actually increased her tilt significantly past impact because she had to tilt. Let's clean up all these lines. She had to tilt so much because of that setup. And we'll see how much tilting she did increase on the right side of the screen. Let's draw some angles here. We have 25, and as she strikes the golf ball, we are now down into 63, so it's almost 40 degrees of increased tilting. And again, this is stemmed from the setup. So if you follow my channel, I always talk about setup and how it causes your whole swing to evolve around your setup. Typically when I see people trying to steal the shaft lean at start of the swing, they are running into two issues. They either have to lean forward to make up those two circles, or they have to lean back to try and meet the ball position relative to their tilting. She does the second option, and she does it very well, but this is a very hard option to do unless your body is built to do this, and most of us are not built to do this because most of us cannot increase our tilt, hang back, and rotate. It is just a very hard thing while you're holding on to your angles. So I hope this kind of gives you an idea of why you need to look at your setup, how your body position works around your setup, and stop listening to people telling you to forward press at the start of your swing. We're not tour pros. We cannot have that tour pro motion, specifically with the driver. Now with the irons, it's a little different story because we're trying to swing down. So yes, you can get away with a little forward press, but I see so many amateurs out there with an extreme forward press and they run into the same issues. But you cannot do this without a coach. So I highly recommend, if you're watching this, go see a coach, go see a reputable coach in person. That's the only way to get things done correctly. But if you need more further information, let me know in the comments down below. I appreciate your support of the channel. Go vote. Don't forget your vote counts. I'll see you guys hopefully tomorrow. Other than that, fairways and greens.